But here's where the biggest confusion and fallacy in this whole entire situation lies, that I didn't actually realize until this morning when I was having a walk and talk with myself. And this is why I decided to flip my camera on and share it with you. Market data is not marketing. I'm gonna repeat that again in a different way. Collecting market data, i.e. driving for dollars, pulling probate lists, pulling code enforcement lists, pulling tax default lists, that activity of generating or finding market data is not marketing. I confuse the two. Hey, what's up, bootstrappers? This is Ryan Nickel coming at you, and it's early morning, and I'm on a walk with myself. I'm out camping with my family, and I get up every morning, and I walk about 4 or 5 miles just to clear my head, commune with God, work out some challenges that I have, and I also get insights. And today was a big one. I actually wanted to record it for you guys and put it up there. Even though I'm recording it today, it probably won't be up for a few days because internet reception is kind of poor up here. So let me just go ahead and share this with you, this thought process. So, and you can let me know how many of you guys are in the same boat, because this was my thought process, and this is where I was seriously like spinning my wheels and just frustrated, like that I wasn't getting the results that I wanted in real estate. And I'm like, man, what's going on? I'm doing exactly what they're telling me to do, and yet it's not producing the result. Like, what's going on? Like, seriously, what's happening here? And if you like these videos, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. That way I know what content you like. And then also, it also tells the algorithms like, hey, this is good stuff. It goes out to other people, they like it, and I can continue making these videos for you. So here we go. So when I first got started in real estate, I was a one-man show. Guess what? I still have a one-man show. And I have one VA that works for me, and then I'm in the process of training a second VA right now. So for all intents and purposes, those VAs are overseas, I'm local, I'm a one-man show. So when I got started, I was struggling with discipline as far as being consistent in my marketing efforts. And so what I would do is I'd complain about this to my wife. I was like, man, I'm not consistent. This isn't working. I need to hire somebody. Like, I wanted to hire someone when I was completely broke. Like, I was like, oh, I don't have anyone to help me out here, so I'm gonna hire someone else. You know, it's like the worst thing ever. Like, you know what you got to do, but you're not doing it. And so what you want to do? You want to hire someone to do it for you. Like, you're like the ultimate example of like complete and total laziness. You're like, yeah, I know I should be doing it, but I'm not gonna do it. So anyway, my wife was like, no, that's stupid. Get your butt in gear and let's make it happen. And so she's like, what needs to happen? I'm like, well, I need to drive for dollars. Well, I got to go to the courthouse and pull some probate leads. Well, I got to do this and I got to do that. She's like, fantastic. Here's a calendar. Mondays, you're driving for dollars. Tuesdays, you're pulling probates. Wednesdays, you're doing tax defaults or whatever it was. Like, we had those regiments. Like, Monday through Thursday, I was doing something, and then Friday was just like follow up. And she's like, I don't want to hear these excuses anymore. Get out there and do it. And like, it was, you know, God bless her for it. It was the structure that I needed. And so I'd pack the kids up in my car, in my Lincoln Navigator, and I'd take them from 9 until noon every single Monday. And I would just drive these grids. Just drive. And as I drove these grids, I identify these properties, and I'd add them to my deal machines. That's what I use. So I use Deal Machine. And I was like, yeah, this is good. Oh yeah, my wife, she's awesome. I'm loving her for like kicking my butt. When I really should be like, you know, hey, I love myself enough to kick my own butt, to get out there and do the things. But sometimes you just need that extra kick, you know, the extra person in your life to motivate you and to get you going, to do what you got to do. So anyway, I started this pattern. I was very consistent. That's one thing about me, is like I'm consistent once the pattern or the program has been set up. Taking the time to think it through and to do it. I had this like fear of failure kind of thing. And so I wouldn't necessarily like create a plan thinking like, oh, if I do this, I could fail. And it's like, it's complete bullshit, you know, gotta keep this PG-13, PG. Completely and total, just like, BS, that's my own internal like dialogue, my own self-doubt and stuff like that. Like, oh, these limiting beliefs that I have, they like trap me. And so I'm like, oh, if I don't go ahead and create something, then I can't blame myself for failing, but here we go, my wife told me to do this, and so if it doesn't work, I can blame my wife. Like, where's the logic in that? But this is where I was at. So mentally, this was my framework, and this is what I was working with. And so I'm like, okay, fine, let's just go with it. So if it didn't work, it was my wife's fault. But guess what? It worked. I got deals. And the reason why was because I was putting in this effort, and I was finding new properties, driving for dollars. I was getting new probate leads, getting new tax default leads. I was networking. I was doing the things that needed to happen in order for me to get out there and to grow my business. But here's where the biggest confusion and fallacy in this whole entire situation lies, that I didn't actually realize until this morning when I was having a walk and talk with myself. And this is why I decided to flip my camera on and share it with you. Market data is not marketing. I'm gonna repeat that again in a different way. Collecting market data, i.e. driving for dollars, pulling probate lists, pulling code enforcement lists, pulling tax default lists, that activity of generating or finding market data is not marketing. I confuse the two. I'm like, man, I've gathered all this data, or in other words, I've been marketing for these properties. How come I'm not getting anything in return? Now, to my credit, I had Deal Machine. So Deal Machine gives you this illusion that it's super simple. All you got to do is drive, push a button, and they will mail it to you. Or they will mail out your postcard for you. Or I'd go down to the courthouse. I'd pull my probate list, take a picture of it, upload it to my VA. She would then go ahead and skip trace them, make sure that the properties weren't already sold, send it back to me. I put it in my mail merge, and it creates the envelopes and the letters for me, and then I would just go ahead and mail them, put them out. Now, that activity of mailing postcards or mailing letters, that is marketing. You're actually marketing to somebody. The fact that you gathered information is not marketing. But in my mind, I'm like, I've been marketing, I've been gathering all this information, and that's the fallacy. And so companies like Deal Machine, now Deal Machine's a great company. I've used them for years and have made lots of money, but let me show you the fallacy here. They recognize that, hey, us real estate investors, we're busy. We don't have the time to market. We're not that good at marketing. All lies, by the way. If you're not good at marketing, that's on you. And you should never give up your marketing to somebody else, because your market is completely uniquely different than someone else's market. I'm gonna share with you why here. So anyway, the idea though is like, oh, I need something easy, push button marketing. I find a house, click on the icon, automatically, boom, mails are going out. And so what was happening was I bought into this idea. I'm like, man, I'm not a good marketer. Oh man, all I got to do is just drive around and continue the same habits I've already developed. And by doing so, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create some opportunity here, and they're going to mail it out to me. That's fantastic. I identify the opportunity, they market to the opportunity. Sounds like a perfect partnership, right? I identify, they market. So what happens? I didn't like their postcard. I'm like, oh, this postcard, generic. So I changed it a little bit. I do have some background in marketing. I was a lead copywriter for a multinational, international company, and we did very well, very, very well, to the point where I eventually became their online marketing manager international. So I do know a little bit about marketing here, but yet, online is different than real estate. At least that was the lie that I told myself. I'm like, oh, this cannot be the same, and therefore, I released myself of any marketing requirements and I gave that information up to Deal Machine. So anyway, so here's what happens, right? Identify these properties. By the way, let me just back up here. Before Deal Machine was ever created, I don't know when David Lecko created it. Guy's a really smart guy. I've met him at a speaking event. And the funny thing about it was, I was talking about some of my old school, bootstrapping ways of finding properties. What I would do is I'd drive around, way before Deal Machine, and I just keep a list. And then I had an app on my phone called Postagram, And what I do is take a picture of the house, Postagram, just say, hey, this isn't your house, is it? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm interested in buying it, and mail them a postcard of a picture of the house. And then I get that correspondence back, and then I'd end up buying their house. And so I was doing this way before Deal Machine was ever an idea. And I had success with it. So that's why I changed the postcards, because I'm like, oh, I don't like their generic one. I'm gonna go ahead and change it to the postcard that I've been using, that I've had success with. So anyway, I digress here. The difference between what I was doing and David is David built an amazing company that's really easy and convenient, and then that's the problem, that's the rub. Because it's easy and convenient, you get marketers or you have real estate agents that are investors that give up, that relinquish their right to market the way that they want to market. Yeah, you can customize it. Yeah, you can do certain things, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk to you about that. But here's what happened. So my personal evolution. I can't talk about other people that are doing super well and crushing it. I only talk about my own personal evolution. I'm a one-man show, and I intend to be that way because I'm a family man, and I enjoy the freedom and the flexibility that it gives me. Now, I understand those are all stories that I've told myself to remain small, and rather than build a team and be able to go and do what I do. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. And so that's the story, and that's the story that's ruling my life. And here I am, hence on vacation. Hence, I'm also not marketing because I'm not there, because I don't have a team. So I can see the catch-22 and the fallacies in my own thought process. But here's what happened. So I'm driving around, I'm identifying these properties, I'm putting them in Deal Machine, clicking on the button, boom, 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 they're going out, and I'm getting phone calls. I'm getting a lot of phone calls. I'm like, oh man, this is actually working here. And now, when I'm getting my phone calls, I'm not converting everybody. I'm like, okay, I gotta work on my conversion. So I work on my conversion, I start closing more deals, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. So this is in my infancy in my business, when I was probably going from, I think this was when I was going from either 2 deals a month to 3 deals a month consistently, or I was going from 1 deal a month to 2 deals a month consistently. And Deal Machine actually was the catalyst for that. Like, it helped me to get there. I was like, man, this is fantastic. I love this opportunity. What do I need to do? I need more properties. So what I decided to do was to drive more. I'm like, I'll just drive more. So I would take off early from work, drive home different routes. If I was gonna go look at a property, I would take off half an hour early and then budget myself for half an hour afterwards, and I'd drive the neighborhoods around those properties. All best practices, by the way. And I would constantly add in Deal Machine. I'd be on date night with my wife. I'd be like just cruising along on our way to dinner. I'm like, pull the car over, like flip around, go back, take a picture of the house, come back. So my wife knew that she was like, she was that I had a mistress, and the mistress was real estate investing through Deal Machine. So we'd be doing these things. I'd be on vacation with my family, certain places. I'm like, oh, this is a cool area. So I just would gather more and more and more data. And what was happening was, I was also on a shoestring budget too. So I think Deal Machine requires their default is like, hey, every 2 weeks you send out these postcards. Well, as I was acquiring more and more data, I'm like, oh man, this is getting to be kind of costly here, and I'm not seeing the return that I want. Granted, I already made tens of thousands of dollars in deals that I have purchased as a direct result of Deal Machine. So I know that quantifiably it worked because I had made the money. Oh great, we have a street sweeper coming up here. Of all the days I'm walking, the street sweeper's gonna come and sweep the road here. So I'm gonna let this guy pass. Which means he's also gonna come back. So anyway, I'm like, okay, this every 2 week thing is getting kind of costly on me. Even though I've already made money, I'm like, oh, it's getting kind of costly on me. I'm gonna go ahead and extend it out to every 60 days. So I went and gathered more and more and more properties. Constantly gathering more properties. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'm not seeing the return anymore. I think I need to do something else here. Either I need to have my postcards because maybe they're becoming oversaturated with the market because there's a lot of people doing the same thing. Maybe I need to be every 60 days instead of every 30 days because I'm just throwing money away and they're just sitting there on people's countertops and not ready. So all good ideas, right? So what I then do is I hire a driver, and I'm like, look, I'm gonna go with you for 2 or 3 days. I'm gonna show you exactly what we're doing, how to do this. And so we go and we drive. And I think at this point consistently, I was probably bringing in maybe about 30 to 45 properties a week. And that was only from a couple hour drive. Like, I'd already been through so many neighborhoods that I've been doing the same thing, but I wanted to expand my market and have this happen here. gonna turn around and go the other way. So we did this, and she brought in like 300 properties the first day. I'm like, holy crap, like, what are you doing? Like, this is wrong, you can't be doing this. Next day she goes out, she brings in like another like 400 properties. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you're killing me here. This is absolutely gonna kill me. So I changed my marketing to go out every 60 days now instead of every 30 days because we had just brought in, like, in the course of a week, she brought in 1,000 properties. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But guess what happened? The phone rang. And we ended up buying, I want to say 2 or 3 houses, like right from the get-go from that. I was like, oh, wow, okay, maybe this is actually something that's working here. And so hired her. She was already hired. So I just let her go loose. I'm like, you know what? You're going to identify properties that I probably wouldn't have identified because I was being picky and judicious because I'm like, oh, this is my money, I'm spending it out. And she's like, I don't care. I'm getting paid by the hour and by the mile. And then if a property hits, then it's a bonus to her, kind of a thing. So anyway, she goes out and she drives and she just brings me tons and tons of properties. And then the postcards are going out every 60 days. And again, granted, she's already paid for herself. I've already made money from the new deals that she's brought in. But there's just something in my mind that's like, this is not working. This is not working to the way that I think it should. And now here's where I'm getting at with this entire thing is, and the same thing happened with my probates. I go and I pull a list. Oh, this county is not pulling as good. I'm gonna go get another county. I'm gonna get a third county. I'm gonna get a fourth county of all these probates. And then I'm gonna mail them. But what was I doing with those lists? So Deal Machine automatically every 60 days just continues to churn. Like, I don't even have to think about it. But it's the same postcard. It's the same message. My probate, I only mailed them one time. Extremely inefficient, complete waste of money. But here's the story that I had. I had people that held on to my letters and they called me back like months and months and months later saying, hey, I got this letter, I held on to it, I thought I could make something happen. Are you still interested in buying my, mother-in-law's or my dad's or my brother's or someone's house? And so I had the idea that, oh, if this was the case, then everyone's going to hold on to my letter. Well, that's not exactly the reality here. It's frequency that trumps quality in this particular, game of marketing. You got to be frequently in front of them. You got to go top of mind awareness is what we call it in the industry. And so what was happening was I had come from a marketing background, but I had become extremely lazy and poor in my performance. I'm going to hold on here until I pass this guy's truck again. If this is making sense to you and you're getting good value, go ahead and comment below and just say, hey man, this is perfect sense, or like, no man, you're the only sucky real estate investor marketer out there. I can't believe that you wasted my time watching this video because you didn't bring any value. And that could be the case too, and that's all right. Let me know so that I can know how to improve either way. So what was happening was I realized that, for example, a company like Deal Machine, they're in the business of, they're basically a marketing company. They get paid when they put out marketing on your behalf. They get paid per postcard. Yeah, they do get a fee, monthly for the use of their software, but they also get paid on the deals that you do, or as far as the postcards, the postcards that you mail out. So it's obviously in their best interest to mail out as many postcards as possible because that's how they make some money. And so in thinking about this, I'm like, okay, yeah, every 2 weeks, generic postcard, go out. But granted, they do want your success because as you have success, you're going to stick with them. Like, I've been with them for years because I've had success. Now, here's where the idea that gathering information, i.e. driving for dollars, pulling probate lists, getting code enforcement, tax default, whatever you may call it, that's where the confusion arises, that this activity that I am partaking in of data collection, data gathering, is not marketing. And it took me a long time to realize that the activity of gathering the list is not the same as actually marketing to the list. Activity of gathering the list is super easy. It's a one-time thing. You go out and you get it and you come back. Marketing requires you to think, to really put some time into this, to sequence your messaging, to hit them from multiple different angles, whether it's a postcard, a text message, a door knock, a cold call, a regular letter, handwritten or not, longhand, written, or typed up, like, well, all these different mediums to get in front of the person. So like marketing has, you have to have these three pillars of marketing. You got to have the message, you got to have the market, and you got to have the medium. And now I'll go ahead and break those down for you. So the message is obviously, what are you going to tell the market? Like, what is your message to this market? What is the medium? Well, the medium is, are you going to knock on their door in person? Are you going to call them? You're going to text them? You're going to send them a postcard? What kind of postcard? You're going to do, handwritten letter, yellow letter. You're going to, have a letter typed out. Like, what are you going to do in your marketing to them? You're going to push them to your website. You're going to push them to a phone call. Like, that's what the, it comes back to the messaging and the medium, and then the market. Like, who's your market? And like, here's the biggest thing is that driving for dollars helped me realize is that just because I'm driving for dollars and I'm identifying problem properties doesn't mean that they actually have a problem. Like, if a house is vacant, that's not a problem. That's a status. That is a current status that property is in. That's not the problem that house has. And thinking about this, like, this is why I focus so much on pre-foreclosures and tax defaults, because they have a deadline. Like, there is a real problem that if they don't solve, they're going to lose that house. So there's this pressure that's built up it's intrinsic in the actual situation itself. They are forced to make a decision before a certain date where they will have the decision made for them, i.e. they will lose the house to auction. And so for me, like, those are always the best thing, because I'm not the one putting the pressure on them. It's the banks or it's the county, because they didn't pay their taxes or something happened. They inherited the property and they didn't have enough time to pay everything current. And so those are all the challenges that are associated with the property. And so for me, I was like, okay, how can I find the most motivated property owner? So obviously pre-foreclosures and tax defaults, you're going to have an inherent motivation because there's a time constraint that is associated with that particular property. And so I got into list stacking. Basically what list stacking is you take these probate lists, these pre-foreclosures lists, these driving for dollars lists, tax delinquent lists, and I went crazy. I was doing at one point I had I think 19 or 20 different lists, the burn lists, water shut off lists, all these different lists that I could get my hands on, and I was stacking them like crazy. And I was looking for the cream of the cream, which is okay, how many of these are on all of 19? This is obviously an exaggeration. The software that I use only allowed for 10. And so I'm looking, okay, what are all these different things? And I would stack these lists, and I only would go after, I would only spend my marketing money on these properties that had multiple problems, multiple pain points. Oh, they were tax default, they were a probate, and they're on a code enforcement list. Those three things are huge for me. I'm man, I'm gonna go after these right now because there's some serious issues going on with this particular property. There's something happening here. And so I would go and I would do this, and I was having more and more success, and these properties were kind of out of the public eye. I'm how come no one else is going after these other properties? Why am I the only one that's hitting these things up? Which is great for me because I'm able to get higher margins, profit value out of these deals. And I started to realize is that this is the part of marketing that most people don't do. They just push button marketer, boop, I'm gonna click a button, send on the postcard, forget about it, go on to the next house. And that's the mass marketing approach. And me personally, being a one-man shop, being a bootstrapper, did not have the luxury nor the desire to dump that kind of money and have that kind of patience, knowing that it's a numbers game. I wanted to go where I had the most opportunities to have a win, the highest probability. And so I'm actually wearing this is the SIFT Dojo shirt. If you guys aren't familiar with REI SIFT, fantastic program, software that allows you to do a lot of the things that I'm talking about as far as gathering these lists in one place and sifting through to find the highest possible opportunities for you. Real high level. Before I was real clunky, almost Excel spreadsheet, okay, here's all my Excel lists. And then filtering through okay, here's the ones that come out. SIFT Dojo, or actually that was a training that I went to, but REI SIFT, they allow for you to at such a high level, as long as your data is inputted properly, go in and to the minutest detail, start to pick these properties apart and find opportunities in your market that were overlooked by you and everybody else. And it's some seriously high-level stuff that has allowed me to really change my marketing and want to have the desire to put into my marketing the sequencing that is needed in order to have these things really, really, really pop. Rather than it's just like, oh, hey, here's a postcard like everybody else. I'm able to do multiple attacks. You know, if you're thinking like an army, for example, you know, if you're going to go on the offensive and you're going to attack your opponent, just stick with me as far as this analogy goes. I'm not saying you go and like attack the person you're trying to help, because I come from a servant's heart. I'm helping this person. But as far as like I'm going to be on the attack to go out and to find this opportunity. If I were fighting a war, I would send the airstrike in, and they'd be bombing the heck out of my competition. And I'd also have the ground support going in as well, and they would be hitting the front lines. So you can also think of that the same way in your marketing as well. You know, your air strikes are going to be your postcards. Like, you're going to mail out these postcards. So let's say, you know, one of the lists that I recently was able to generate. So I have tens of thousands of data for my local community. Like, I only have a community anyway of 66,000, so it's not that many people, right? If I go into like the outlying counties, I may have like 120,000 if I push it, right? So not that many people. But in my list, from the driving for dollars, from the probates and all these other things, I got about close to, I think, 45,000. I have to look to be accurate, but I think it's close to about 45,000. Maybe it's a little bit, a tick over 40,000, but still, you know, it's called a third of. I've identified a third of the properties in my marketplace, given the total population. I'm not going to go after every single one of those. I'm not even going to mail every single one of those. That would be a complete waste of money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sift through that data, and I'm going to find who is on multiple lists, who's on tax default, who's on pre-foreclosure, who's on probate, who's on, high equity, vacant, absentee owners, like whatever it may be. I'm going to start listing through all those things. And I came up with a list, and I'm like, man, I got 24 people here. I found 24 hot deals. So that core 24, I mailed out postcards to. Now that's one to strike. So I'm not just going to leave it there. Like, that's what I used to do, is like kind of spray and pray, like, oh, I'm going to mail these postcards and just wait for them to call me. No. When you have a hot list like this that's extremely targeted, I'm going to mail my postcards. I'm going to start calling these numbers and find out which one's an actual live number. That's a number that I can actually use. And I'm going to start texting that person. Now, if it's a deal that I like know for certain, like, this is one that I absolutely want, I'm going to go and I'm going to door knock that person. Or I'm going to door knock where it's being mailed to. Or I'm going to door knock a neighbor or a relative or somebody. And then I'm also going to start building some family trees out. In case the person's deceased, I'm going to build a family tree. I'm going to find their heirs. I'm going to probate this. I have a probate attorney on my team that I say, hey, here's what we got. Boom. And they're off and they're running to the races. And we've closed several this way. Several that have just been completely forgotten about, unknown to the rest of the market, because they're not diving this deep into it. Again, this is not marketing. This is still in the data collection phase. I am still deep diving into my data so that I can market. Again, it's the market, the medium, and the message. So I am understanding what the market is, trying to find out, okay, I've identified 24 properties, smoking hot properties that have virtually zero competition. There might be a little overlap on maybe one or two of them, but I guarantee you that all 24 of those are not getting hit by anyone else in my marketplace. Because we're such a small marketplace. We're a tertiary market compared to like the major metropolitans that are around me. I'm so far removed from them that they may come up here because they see the numbers that we're doing, or they see the profit that's there, but they're not getting these properties because they're not the low-hanging fruit. Most investors are weak and lazy when it comes to marketing, myself included. I was there. Is that we're just looking for the low-hanging fruit. How can I get in and get out with the least amount of money spent possible so that I can make as much money as possible? I mean, we're cheap. I just call it what it is. We're extremely cheap. We want to make as much money as possible with the least amount of money spent, and move on to the next thing. But if you actually want to build a business, and this is the process that I'm in right now, is trying to build a business, realizing that, hey, I'm stuck in this process because I'm a one-man shop. So I actually want to start building these processes and stuff like that to get myself out of the situation that I'm in. Is basically, okay, great, I've identified these properties. Now let's go ahead and build this system so that I can go ahead and remove myself so that I become the person who's who's a frontline person. Like this is what I do. Like I am really good at connecting with people. My background is in social work. I have a big heart, and I just love helping these people. And a lot of these people, when you think about it, are going through, like, you know, if it's a probate deal and it's in let's say pre-foreclosure, and there's some code enforcement violations. Like, these are people that have inherited a property, they don't know what they want. They don't know how to, they're not knowing how to deal with this. They're grieving. So there's all this trauma that's like added on top of it. And now they run the risk of losing this property, and there's no one there to help them. Here comes Ryan Nickel. I'm going to help these guys. This is what I do. I'm a real estate problem solver. I'm an extremely high paid social worker at the end of the day, is what it comes down to. And the main reason is I've been there. I lost my house. We were kicked out the day after Christmas. My wife was pregnant with our second child. I know what it's like. And if I can prevent them from having to be kicked out of their house with their family, I'm going to do my best to make that happen. No one came and knocked on my door, though I was hoping and praying they did. I was hoping I was going to be rescued and saved by someone, and no one came. But if I can come and I can help these families out of these situations, I will. And that's where my message comes into play. Like, you know, if I believe this passionately about this, why would I just go ahead and go, oh, hey, Deal Machine, go ahead and send that postcard, that generic postcard out to somebody? But there's no passion and power in that. I look like everybody else, when really I have a gift and a talent to help these people. And yet I just go ahead and I've just given up, relinquished my right as a marketer to a company because of ease and convenience. You're starting to see the problem that I was running into is, you know, I've written a best-selling book, How to Defend Yourself from Foreclosure. Like, I know how to beat these banks at their own game. I've done it for years, but I haven't gotten the message out. And that's on me. That's all my responsibility. That's my fault for being a sucky and lame and lazy marketer. At the end of the day, it's what it comes down to, right? I'm calling myself out here. And so as I look at this stuff, I go, okay, this is what needs to happen. I need to change this behavior. And how do I change this behavior? Well, I take my marketing back, is what I do. I now have created systems or sequencing of events that, as I mentioned, you know, airstrike, ground strike, that's happening all at the same time. But it's not just generic messages as well. It's very targeted to the lists that I'm going after. No longer am I confusing the act of list gathering with the function of marketing in my company. I am controlling the message. I am controlling the mediums, and I'm controlling the market that it's going to. And this is where I want you guys to get as well. And maybe you're already there. Well, I guess that's what happens when I'm recording 4K for like an hour. I eat up all my my memory. So let me just go ahead and cut this short here. Maybe you're already there, and that's fantastic. And that's what I wish for you guys, is to be there. But as a bootstrapper, it's the most effective way you can market, is understanding who you're marketing to, why you are marketing to them, and how you're going to market to them. In other words, what is your message? What is your market? And what is your medium? Go after those three things in a powerful way, and you'll see your profits start to soar. I'm Ryan Nickel, guys. This is Bootstrap REI, and just remember, you're one deal away from changing your entire financial future. All it takes is for you to hit that one deal. And if you're interested, I'll share with you my postcards. I'm gonna put here in the description. I'll give you my link for Deal Machine. If you're not using Deal Machine, I'll give you my exact templates with Deal Machine. If you're not using REI Sift, I'll give you a link. You guys can get. I think my Deal Machine will give you 2 weeks free plus like 15 credits or like 15 postcards. I believe that's what my link does. REI Sift, I don't know if that gives you anything or not. I don't even know if it helps me. I honestly don't even know. I'm sure there is some kind of kickback on there. I'm sure there is. I mean, or else, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. So tell you what, if you sign up for those things, let me know. I'll take care of you. I'll share with you some of the behind the scenes things that I'm doing that only my private coaching students get to see. But if you're going to go ahead and take a leap of faith on me, I'll go ahead and invest in you as well. Keep it going, guys. I'm going to go enjoy the lake with my family today. Talk to you guys on the next one.